Hi, this is video number 387. Happy New Year. Although it's not New Year's yet, it's New Year's Eve. Although it's probably New Year's in some of the places where some of you are, it's probably New Year's already. I wanted to come here and just do one since it's last day of 2017. Not the best year for some of you, I know, from probably most of you. Okay, the weather here has been very, very cold. We were supposed to get a dusting to 1 inch of snow 2 nights ago. Well, it snowed 4 inches yesterday. Like yesterday morning, it snowed 4 inches. It's a very, very light snow. So instead of getting the snow blower out, I just got the shovel out and did the driveway, did the sidewalk. And Pastor Dave, who he lives across the street, he's actually in the book. I talk about him in the book a little bit. I went over and helped him. They got a double garage, and their driveway's pretty wide. He's getting on in years, further on than I am so far. So I went over and helped him and talked to him a little bit. So today I'm feeling really, really stiff. It wasn't the herniated disc in my neck because the snow was very light. Like lifting it was nothing, but just the bending over. I haven't done that it's been at least 3 years since I actually shoveled snow. I got the snowblower 2 years ago, and I've been using that. But I didn't do it on this one because it's a hassle to get that out if you don't really need it. So I did the shoveling. That was okay. And this morning it was very, very cold outside, but they had also plowed the end of the driveway some. So I went out, and it was still very light. So I went out. I didn't put a jacket on or anything. It was like 10 degrees. I was only out there like 2 minutes though, so I was okay there. Yeah, so it was 10 degrees this morning when we left for church. It hasn't gotten a whole lot warmer, maybe 15, 16 degrees, I don't know. It's supposed to be this way for another, I think, a week before it gets back into the 30s, so we'll see if that happens or not. I hope so. I have a little story about the Christmas tree. I'm up in the bedroom here where I have done most of my videos actually. Took the Christmas tree down yesterday. It's funny because the Christmas tree, there were a couple areas in the tree that would not light, okay? And I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what that was all about, but over the course of like the month that we had it up, they wouldn't light. So I thought, well, whenever I take it down, I'll figure out, where the problem is in that. So anyway, like I took the top piece off. It was lit all right, it was okay. So I took it off and I unplugged it from the rest of the tree, but then I'm looking around. I can't find, where the thing is, what's wrong. Like I think I had everything plugged in. I have found out since that it could actually be they have fuses in them, I think, like the little plug. So maybe the fuse was burnt out on some of them. I don't know. I just found that out from my brother-in-law last night. Anyway, so anyway, I thought, well, I'll just maybe next year, I'll figure it out when I put it up again. So I have like 2 sections of the tree, the bottom section and the middle section is like the bigger section of the 3 sections. So I go to, pull the top section and the bottom section apart, and like they will not come apart. They just will not come apart. And I'm thinking, I'm not happy because I was out, shoveling snow. I did an elliptical workout. I was not happy. So then like my wife came down and so what I did was I took some twine, wrapped it around the tree so that it would be like as thin as possible, not real wide. And I did manage to get the tree, like the two pieces that are still together, back in the bag, except for like about maybe 8 inches that sticks out. So I didn't zip the whole way over the bottom of it. Like I have this like about 8 inches sticking out the bag, and then the top of the tree, I got that in there too. So next year I don't have to put those 2 pieces together. Then they're already plugged into each other, so it actually work out better. So I'm thinking that's the fuses that was the problem. But boy, them not coming apart, I was not a happy camper. I really, really was not. But actually, it turns out better because next year I won't have to try to figure out how to put them together and to plug them together and all that. That's good. Watched the Fiesta Bowl last night, Penn State and Washington. Penn State won 35-28. Really, really good game. It's kind of sad in a way because this Penn State team this will be it for them, like the seniors that were playing and so forth over these last couple years. If some of you probably know Penn State, like 3 years ago, like for a number of years, they had sanctions because of the thing that happened with Jerry Sandusky and all of that. So there were a lot of sanctions against them, which affected scholarships and so forth. And so their teams really were not anything like a typical Penn State team. So these last 2 years, they had lifted the sanctions, and they got a new coach, James Franklin, and like it was almost like magic. I remember last year, in 2016, that season, yeah. I remember being at a Penn State game. They had just lost to Michigan really, really badly. They just got killed by Michigan. And I remember going to a game at Penn State with my friend Jason, and we're sitting there, and it's the third quarter. It's like a misty, drizzly day and kind of raw. And they're losing by, I don't know how many. They were losing. We're sitting in the north end zone, and the ball is down at toward the other end zone, the other side of the field, and they're coming toward us. And I remember there was a play, was where the quarterback rolled out, and something about a fake to the running back or something, and they threw a long pass downfield and completed it. And it was like that play began the magic, like all of a sudden they became really, really good. And I think they won out for the rest of the season, except they lost to USC, Southern California, in the bowl game last year. And then the magic continued into this year. They lost 2 games by a total of 4 points, but there was this magic that started with that one play when they were playing Minnesota last year. And I was actually at that game, so it's kind of sad in a way because there was a really special chemistry, with the team this year. But and their running back Saquon Barkley, he's a junior, but everybody thinks he'll probably go to the NFL. He's an incredibly good running back. He might be the best I've ever seen. I don't know. He's really, really good. So, but they won last night. It was a good game. It was entertaining. Like a lot of the bowl games aren't so entertaining, but that one was. That one really was. Okay, church today. There was actually quite a few people there for a New Year's Eve. We had our small group. I didn't think we were going to have it, but we did. And so we went in there, and I never know what I'm going to talk about in small group until we actually sit down and start. I have a lesson. There is a lesson I can do, and then I just heard a sermon. So if there's something in the sermon I want to talk about, then we'll talk about that. Or if something else comes up, and I didn't actually get into either one of them. I mentioned something. I forget what I was talking about, and then someone else talked about something. Frida. I have mentioned Frida and Carl before. They're my small group. They're an older couple. And she says something about her brother. I think I talked about him once before. It hasn't been a year, but a number of months ago, he started out of nowhere just having anxiety, depression. I think he had some delusional thinking, maybe. I'm not sure. This is her brother. I think they live down south, maybe in North Carolina. And they put him on, I think maybe they put him on something, an antidepressant or an antipsychotic. It has helped a little bit with maybe the delusional thinking. I'm not sure. But overall, he appears to be still really bad. He has really bad anxiety and depression and so on. So she was talking about him and how his wife gets him to do things, but you all know how he feels. I mean, the anxiety, depression, no rhyme or reason for why I feel this way. I mean, for you, it's benzo withdrawal or withdrawal from some other drug. So I told her, I said, well, do you think, if I made him a YouTube video, like an unlisted video that he could go to and watch, that it might help? And she didn't know. She didn't know if his wife would want him. And I told her, I said, there's something about watching someone or listening to somebody who has actually been through what you're through, because you speak the same language. I speak your language. I know what you've been through. I went through it. I can talk about all of the symptoms because I had most of them myself. I know about the depression, the anxiety, the panic, the fear. I know all of that. And it's like this language that You know, when somebody who's been through it is there, there's just something. It's not that I'm magical. It's just that I'm someone who's been through this. So I think what I will do maybe tomorrow or sometime this week, make a short video for him and just try to talk in his language and see if that, you know, resonates with him. I suspect, honestly, this all came out of nowhere, supposedly. Like, he used to be like a real happy guy, lots of accomplishment, did a lot of things in his life. I suspect, honestly, that benzos are involved somehow, because it's just like, bam, out of nowhere. I suspect maybe he was taking maybe Valium or Xanax or something now and then all of a sudden quit, and now this is going on. And nobody probably suspects, like, well, gee, you know, it was those pills that are actually doing this to him. So I'm going to find out, though. I'm going to do a video, I think, and I'm going to tell him about, you know, this website and the videos and so forth, and just talk about benzos a little bit and see what comes of that. Because a lot of people have taken benzos and then like they come off of them or they're causing them problems, and they have no idea that it was the benzo. So this could be an opportunity to reach somebody who actually is in benzo withdrawal and doesn't know it, who's suffering terribly. Okay, let me see how much time I have here. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with all of this yet, but I did get an email and a Facebook message earlier today. Okay, tonight, New Year's Eve night, we're going into my son's. Eli's gonna be there, so that'll be fun. I haven't seen him in a while since his sleepover the other day. They're having tacos tonight. I'm not sure what else, but I love tacos. So I didn't eat a whole lot for lunch today. I didn't have oatmeal today. I had my carrots and celery and peanut butter, some popcorn. So I'm looking forward to tacos. I love tacos. Tomorrow is New Year's Day. What we typically do for that is we go to dinner at my brother-in-law's and his wife. They have pork and sauerkraut and usually some sort of cake afterwards. So that's always fun. Nobody else in the family eats pork and sauerkraut but us. So my son will often show up and come over and talk to us after we eat, but he won't eat the sauerkraut or the pork. Okay, since this is the end of the year, I have end of year stuff due for the treasurer job at the church. A lot of tax stuff. End of the year is never fun for being the treasurer, because there's all this. You got to make all of the payments because it's the end of the last quarter. It's the end of the month for the federal payments. Then you got to do the 941 for the end of the quarter for the feds, and you got to make statements then for the end of the quarter for the other ones too, the state and the local. And then you got to do the W-2s, and that's always fun. The W-2s the last few years have been pretty easy because you can do them online now. You don't have to send for the paper W-2s and do all that mess. That's long gone. So hopefully, you know, I'll try to take my time this year, and I typically try to get it all done in one big long day, and that's a drag. I think what I will do is just spread it out over a week or two. So you don't have to have the W-2s done, I think, till the end of the month anyway. Okay, let me see. Okay, and I had mentioned in a couple of the last videos that I would maybe continue. I had done a Thanksgiving list a couple of videos ago, I think. And I thought maybe I would add to that list today, but instead, that would be more like good stuff that has happened in the last 4 years, because that list I actually wrote 4 years ago. But it would mostly be specific things in my own life that I would mention, but they would actually fall under the things that I had mentioned in that list, but they would be more specific, like relationships and friends and things I've done and so forth. Instead, I want to go back to something that I hope you could relate to more. Okay, I call them my 2 blank years. I think you can relate to these. They're the 2 years in my whole history of psych med experience, which started in 1997. Okay, I had 2 blank years. Okay, and the first one was 1998. I've talked about this before, when I was polydrugged. Okay, it's in the book, like 1997, 98. The first 98 was the first full blank year, but it's like 18 months of blank, basically, almost something like a blackout in a way. but the polydrugging began in 1997. And this is in the book. Like I was put on Paxil, then Zoloft, then Cerazone, then Remeron, Depakote, Zyprexa, Effexor, Celexa, Xanax, Klonopin, Buspar, Trazodone. And they're the ones I can remember, like just sitting here. There were other ones too that I don't recall right now. And I remember for that time, those 18 months, but 1998 in particular, that was a blank year. It was a certain kind of year, and that was it. The extreme depression, the anxiety, hopelessness, insomnia, the exhaustion, fatigue, suicidal ideation. And I had a suicide plan at the end of 98, which I've talked about. It's in the book. And I miraculously was saved from that, and that's in the book too. But it was just a really, really bad year. What I remember mostly from that year is I walked a lot. I took my walks around here. I walked and walked and walked so much, especially starting in 97 that summer. But I did a lot of walking here. When I could go to work, there was part of the year I worked at different times. All I could do was I would sit there primarily. I would look up information on butterflies. It had nothing to do with my job. The monarch, for some reason I was obsessed about the monarch butterfly. I would do research on the monarch butterfly. I even had a file on it with all different kinds of things that were written and so forth, and how sometime in, I guess they are primarily, they nest or whatever in Mexico, somewhere in Mexico, and there was a freeze down there, and that's the thing I remember about the monarchs. And now there aren't nearly as many monarchs around here as there used to be. When I was a kid, there was just monarchs all over the place. Now it's very rare to see one. So when I went to work, it was mostly the butterfly thing. I did a little bit of other stuff, very, very hard. But when I would stay home, if I wasn't out walking, I would usually lie on the floor and watch the Weather Channel. That's what I did when I was at home mostly. And the weather, like, it's the same. Like in a day, it's like the reports are the same, and the different people that did the weather, and for some reason I had this thing about Vivian Brown. She was very calming. Like she was a woman on the Weather Channel that would do 15, 20 minutes, and then another one would come. But there was something very calming about Vivian Brown. That's in the book too. Okay, so 1998 was my blank year, and at the end of 98, I had a plan. It was a bad year. It was a really, really bad year. I was hopeful that I would never ever have to walk through a year like that again, because it was horrendous. And I can even remember one time I did a talk for some guys, I think in the church that my brother went to, and I said I would never have to go through that again. That would never happen to me. Well, I was wrong. I had no idea I was still taking Klonopin then too, so I had no idea what that might be doing and what was in the future for me with respect to the Klonopin. Okay, so we fast forward now 12 years later to 2010. And that was another blank year. That was a blank year, 1998 and 2010. Okay, I had stopped drinking in October of 2009, the year before. Incredible anxiety, which I thought was from post-acute withdrawal from the booze, and maybe some of it probably was. So I thought, well, I'm going to updose the Klonopin. I was on 1 milligram, updosed to 4 milligrams, and I got a whole lot worse. And I remember the very last normal thing I did. I made it 6 months or 6 weeks on the 4 milligrams. The last normal thing I did was the W-2s for the church. I remember I got to get these done because nobody else knows how to do this. And I remember getting those done, and I went in to talk to the pastor, and I was like sobbing and apologizing. I have to quit because I'm so messed up. 2 weeks later, after I went in and talked to him, I was suicidal. That was that Saturday morning. Ended up in a psych hospital for 3 weeks under suicide watch. I honestly thought I would die in there. I remember obsessing about, my father died at the age of 56, I think, or 57, and I was 56 in the hospital, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it as long as my father made it, because I thought I would just die in the hospital. It was really, really bad. In the hospital, they cold turkeyed me from Klonopin, and they put me on Wellbutrin just for the heck of it, clomipramine. I think there were a couple other things too, but those are the two. Clomipramine is a tricyclic antidepressant. It's one of the old ones. It made me extremely, my stomach hurt all the time, and yet I would still try to eat, but that was bad. 4 ECT treatments in the last week and a half there. They forced me to go to meetings and tortured me in so many other ways, making me do things that, it was just a bad, bad experience. Got out of there, went home, reinstated my 1 milligram of Klonopin. Also had an appointment with a Dr. Stokes here in Harrisburg. She was this big, huge woman. She was terrifying. She terrified me. But she put me on Cymbalta, Pristiq, Buspar, Vistaril, Seroquel. Well, no, like she put me on Cymbalta and Buspar. Yeah, and Vistaril. Okay, for sleep supposedly. That's right. Those were her 3. I think there were a couple other things later on. And then later, I went to see another psychiatrist, and she put me on Pristiq first, and then something else, Lexapro, okay, for 10 weeks, and then Seroquel, and then that was the end of the drugging. Like, she released me from her care because I was non-compliant. She didn't think 10 weeks on Lexapro was long enough, even though every day I took it, I got sick. And all through this, I was told I was not in withdrawal, like both of them. They said, this is not withdrawal, you are mentally ill. So after 3 months of, after I got out of the hospital, I tapered the 1 milligram over 3 months, It was 3 months after getting out of the hospital, I decided I gotta get off the Klonopin, and then I tapered for 3 months. Managed to get to work for 6 to 7 months. Off and on, I didn't go, usually I took Fridays off because I felt so incredibly bad. I really didn't do any work in there. I just kind of sat there and shivered in fear, really. The rest of the year, really, of 2010 is a blur. My only memories are misery. I had no non-misery memories. Everything was just bad. Everything that I can remember was bad, except for Eli being born. I do remember him being born about 3 months after I got off of the Klonopin. And that was a horrible morning for me day when he was born, because I went to the hospital, but I was just in a bad, bad way. The holiday season in 2010 was just a blur. Anxiety, panic, depression. I remember going into my in-laws for dinner, but it was just awful. It was just an awful time. Let me see what else I have here. Okay, so the point here is, like, 2 blank years, 98 and 2010. Even with both of these years of horror, and I made mistake after mistake both times. I've taken all those drugs and doing all those different kinds of things. Even after all of the mistakes I made, all of the torture that I went through, I got well, okay? And you will too. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I had no idea what was going on with me. I didn't know what was wrong with me, first of all. And then I did things that, like, if I had known, I never would have done them. But anyway, this can be done, okay? You can get well. You will get well. I am an example of that. I made a lot of wrong turns. A lot of them. I went down the wrong road. I had to turn around, come back, and go take a different road. So this can be done. And I know I get a lot of emails from people, well, I think I kindled myself by doing this thing and that thing. Maybe you did, maybe so. But that happens to many people. Most people probably. We make a mistake, and you can't just, like, throw your hands up and say, well, I can't do this. You kind of got to backtrack a little bit and then take another road. That's just the way this is. It's trial and error. It really, really is. Even with all of the information that's available on withdrawal and benzos and psych drugs, there is no one size fits all. Like, you do what you can do to get to the end of it. And sometimes, we make wrong turns, but you get back on the road and keep going. You keep doing your day-to-day, one day at a time thing, and you get there. Okay, let me see what I got here. Okay, almost 25 minutes. Okay, got an email a little bit ago. We'll talk about this a little bit. It's a short one, but I got some stuff to say about it. And then a Facebook message too a little bit ago. Okay, The email, oh man, a friend of mine said that there are tons of new success stories on Benzo Buddies, which there are. That's the good news, okay. But I also stumbled upon this, and then he has a link to a Benzo Buddy post, okay. And he says, this can't be real. Oh man, I don't think I'll survive this. It's all just too much. My brain is fried as it is. Please help. Okay. Now, okay, the thing that he has the link to, this was the post, and then there were like comments under the post. It's, hi, haha, I thought that I'm finally done, but after 8 years and 4 months, some withdrawal feelings came back since a few days. Strange, because I almost forget these feelings. Burning skin and a bit of anxiety in the morning. So long after time after meds and withdrawal, it can come back. Okay, now, and then I read comments after that, and like he or she, whoever it is, I don't know, they were drinking too. Like in over this 8 years and 4 months, they've been drinking. I don't know if they just binged or what, but alcohol, to me, alcohol is like a no-no. You do not, if you have been in benzo withdrawal, you don't drink again. I know we like to drink. I would love to take a drink like just for the flavor, the taste, but I can't. If I do that, I will get symptoms. I know I will. I'm absolutely certain of it. There's no question in my mind. And I know some people will tell you, well, after so many years, you probably can take a drink. And I would say, if you want to be absolutely certain that you're not going to go back into withdrawal, don't ever pick up a drink of alcohol. I mean, it's a risk. You are playing with fire. It is that simple. That's as simple as it gets, okay? And I in the last few months, I've been getting emails from people, well, I was feeling pretty good. I'm a year and a half, 2 years out. I'm feeling pretty good. I thought I could, and then I did, and now I'm right back at the beginning. That's what happens. That is what happens to a lot of people. I know it's like the idea of not ever being able to drink a glass of wine again or have a beer or a drink. I know it took me a long time to deal with that myself. And I was an alcoholic. It took me a long time. The thing for me was, when I come home from work and do my workout and I go downstairs, if I don't pick up a drink, what am I going to do? And I would freak out. It's almost like that is in our culture, our society, our civilization, our civilized society. We think we have to have a drink to be sociable, to be something. I don't know, to fill our time. I don't know. And I know that feeling very well. I would freak out when I was still working and thinking, like, when I retire, what am I going to do? Am I just going to sit around and drink? And I really was concerned about that. The drinking was taken from me in a way that I would have preferred that it had been done in an easier, softer way, but it wasn't. It was taken away. It was just ripped from me. And the benzos had to go to the Klonopin. So for me, the drinking kind of led up to the benzos in many ways. And for this, it's not a good idea to drink. I will tell you that time after time after time, because it's a risk. For me, I don't ever want to be back in benzo withdrawal. It was hell. It was absolute hell. And that's why I sit here and talk to you. I know what this is like. It was the most horrendous thing that ever happened to me my entire life. And I've gone through some stuff in my life. So anyway, I guess that's about the booze, okay? And the person that sent me this is freaking out. But to me, this clearly, whoever wrote this, they were drinking. You're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble when you do that. Okay. 29 minutes. Okay, Facebook message. This is a little bit longer. I don't think I read this entire thing, but I'll answer as I go along here. Thanks, Dawn, for the video. Okay, I had done a video on something that she wrote a few videos back, I think. All of them. Every time I listen to talk about this, it's 100% spot on. I have a dear friend in this, yet someone else who I've never met who is suffering badly too and so kind. I think she's from Pennsylvania. She has just purchased a program called DNSR to target the limbic system. Okay, they claim that it can get stuck. Can I ask what your thoughts are on this, please? Coming from a clear brain and your own studies of the brain. Of course, I feel totally stuck, so I'm wondering. I personally haven't looked at it. Okay, I'll talk about this part first, 'cause there's more to the message. Let me see. The limbic system getting stuck. I think that's exactly what happens, and I think that's what happens. The limbic system being, well, the amygdala is there, and that part of the brain, and it has a lot to do with the fight or flight. That's part of they call that the primitive brain, like the reptilian brain. Like that's the first brain, I guess, that supposedly evolved, and I think that does get stuck. It's the fight or flight thing. Um, Now, as far as this program, I don't know. I mean, I have never heard of a program that across the board works for people. It's possible. I think getting the limbic system unstuck, whatever has caused the fight or flight mechanism to start in each one of us, I think that's what's stuck, and it needs to be unstuck. And that's kind of where I'm coming from as far as like the stellate ganglion block, the acupuncture, and so forth. Okay, so that's that part of the email. Also, if I can pick up on something you said in a recent video, please. It was when you said when you were feeling better, you could possibly do stuff to help your continued healing. I ask as I continually push myself to do what I have to do. I cooked Christmas lunch and felt I would die or go insane in the process. Go to work in this state, just indoor, but nothing works or helps. It's just been sorting my Christmas decorations. I've just been sorting my Christmas decorations, making myself do chores, ridiculous fatigue, sweating, sorting myself, getting rid of Christmas cardboard, all the other neurological horror, and nothing works. Someone said on a group that is like we are allergic to ourselves, and oh my gosh, how true, but not only ourselves, but everything more or less. I don't know if that makes sense. The stuckness is the worry. Thanks as always, and I truly hope you enjoy the new year. Okay, let me see where I want to. Okay, it was not until I started feeling better that all of those things seemed to help me pull myself out. And I think they probably did. Eli was a big one, of course, my grandson, but I still did stuff when I was in withdrawal. And I've talked about that. I tried to do at least a couple things every day. I went to work for as long as I could. I probably could have gone back when I was still in withdrawal toward the end of it, but I had already retired, so it was not really necessary. I did things. I went out and did stuff in the yard. I vacuumed here. I went to church. I went to the grocery store. I did drive some. I tried to make myself do things. It didn't make me feel any better, but it had a psychological benefit to it. At least I knew I wasn't giving up. I'm still trying. I'm still gonna know how to do these things when I do get well. If I do actually get well, which that was my big hope. That's why I read success stories. I'm going to get well, so I don't want to have to relearn all of these things. I'm going to do them now. Had a little push for my wife now and then, but okay. Let me see what else. Okay, allergic to ourselves. In a way, it's sort of like that. It's like that's kind of like the duality of the brain. Like the one part of the brain that seems to be sick is terrorizing the other part. It's like, but they both belong to the same body. That's what's so weird about this. It's like the fight or flight thing. One part of the brain did that, and it doesn't necessarily care if it's torturing the other part of the brain. So that there is like some, it's almost like being allergic to ourselves. There is some truth to that. Okay, now the stuckness. The stuckness is, and I've talked about this a good bit, like this whole, the switch on, switch off thing. That's kind of like, it gets stuck on. You can't, I mean, trying to unstick it is, I think it does unstick itself now and then for some people, and I think that's where windows come from. And I think it get unstuck too, like the stellate ganglion block for a lot of people. It gets unstuck, like the switch goes back off. And they're good for a while at least. But I think, the overall healing of most people, like if they can't get the switch unstuck, that's where the brain kind of like, I look at it as it rewires around the switch. It creates a new electrical pathway, kind of. And almost literally, maybe that's what it does, because it is electricity that actually is like, that's what the nervous system, the impulses are based on. Very, very, very tiny voltages, I guess, or whatever the electrical term would be for that. Very, very tiny ones. So it's kind of like, if your brain can't, unstick the switch, it has to rewire around that switch. Well, like you would do in a house, like, well, this is messed up, we're just going to rewire around it. It's not working anymore. I think that kind of, it's not anything to get like worried about. This, I mean, it's the very thing I've talked about for actually years. This is the way I've looked at it for years, really. Even way back when I was starting to feel well, it's like there's this switch. The brain doesn't, it actually turned the switch on. It doesn't know how to turn it back off, so it has to rewire around it. A different part of the brain maybe has to rewire around it. It makes sense. Like, it makes sense as far as like logic. Now, like neurologically, and physiologically what that entails, I have no idea. And that's where Susie Cohen, America's Pharmacist, comes in, and this other guy who lives, I think he actually has a practice in Upper Darby, which is near Philadelphia, about an hour and a half from me. They know a lot more about that sort of thing than I do, like actual neuroscience, and that I know a good bit, and my strength is I can read things and understand them, but I'm not really up on a lot of things that they are. They're very smart people. So anyway, yeah, the switch, it's kind of like it's stuck. I've talked about that before. Now, as far as the limbic system and all that, I think that's where the problem is here, the reptilian brain and the fight or flight response. That's kind of like, there is some truth to that. Now unsticking the switch is I'm thinking there is something that does unstick it, because every once in a while, in some people, like Windows and something, and so on, it unsticks. Boom, it's, the switch is, it has gone back off, and life is good. Like, people feel some people feel completely normal in a window, and some feel a lot more normal. So yeah, something's going to happen in this. I am confident that there are going to be things discovered in this next year. I may have said that at the end of last year too, I'm not sure. But, I think there's certainly enough ability and talent in people in this world, in this country, I think, to figure this out. What is needed is the motivation. Like, if people just had a taste of what this feels like, and then they get better, they would know, like, oh yeah, I got to help these people because they're really messed up. I know what this feels like. And in many respects, Susie Cohen, like her husband, going through this, and she sees that. I mean, she's a discerning person. She can see his misery. So anyway, that's kind of what I got. I'm almost at 38 minutes too. Yeah, that's what I got. What I would like to do is maybe try to come back tomorrow. Maybe I have some good Eli stories from tonight. There's gonna be a couple other little kids there too at this thing tonight, so could be some good stories. I don't know. And if I get some emails and messages and so forth, come back tomorrow and talk about them. But I wanted to, since it's the last day of the year, I wanted to come back and talk a little bit about my 2 blank years, because they were basically like, well, the 1998 was not a withdrawal year necessarily, but it was as bad as withdrawal. It was a horrendously bad year, and 2010 was a withdrawal year. They were both very bad years. All that I remember pretty much is misery. Don't remember anything normal, anything good, just misery. But I had to go through those to get where I am now, and where I am now is very good. And you're going to get here too. You really are. It's just going to take a little time yet here. And in the interim here, maybe in 2018, I am hopeful, like, okay, somebody will finally address this and find things that help tremendously, help a lot, and maybe even end this whole thing, and it'll just be over, and you go on to other problems in the society. But this is a big one, and it's going to get resolved at some point. So you are healing. You're continually healing. Just remember that. Even if 2017 was just complete misery for you, you were healing during that year for sure. Maybe you just didn't feel it, but it's happening. That this rewiring, like since things are stuck, the rewiring, that's how I see it. Like your brain is figuring other pathways. For some people, it doesn't take that long, and some people it takes much longer. And I think maybe there are people that somehow, maybe by mistake, they actually turn the switch back off. I don't know. I have no idea. I just don't know. But the rewiring thing, I think, that makes sense. It's logical, and I think it does have merit. But there are a lot of aspects to this that we don't know about. We don't know everything that's going on in the brain with this, but I feel confident it's going to get sorted out, and things will get a whole lot better. So anyway, I'm gonna be off to eat some tacos in a while. I got some puzzles down there from the newspaper I'm gonna do. Maybe watch a little bit of a football game, and then get into my sons and have some tacos. So hope you have a good rest of the year. I know for some of you this year, 2017 is over and you're into 2018 now, but I'm looking for a good year. I hope we all have a good year, and we make great strides in addressing benzo withdrawal and withdrawal from all psych drugs. So as always, I'm right here, and I will be right here. Bye-bye.